Welcome inside the CEC TV studios, where we are live with another edition of Trailblazer Weekly. I'm your host, Keric Seegmiller, and today we've got a loaded show with highlights and scores from last week as football, women's soccer, volleyball, and men's and women's cross country were all in action last week. Later in the show, we'll sit down with Dixie State strength and conditioning coach Craig Timmons. We'll cap it all off with a look ahead at the next week in Trailblazer Athletics. There's no time to waste, so let's get to it. Trailblazer Weekly starts now. Again, welcome inside this week's edition of Trailblazer Weekly. Last week was indeed a busy week as football, women's soccer, volleyball, and men's and women's cross country were all in action over the weekend. And we've got the highlights and the scores to prove it. We'll start that now. We kick things off on the soccer pitch as the women's soccer team hosted Westminster on Friday in its final non-conference tune-up before Pacific West Conference play begins this Thursday. The Trailblazers had scored 2 goals or more in their 3 wins leading up to the match and looked to keep the goal-scoring party going. And did they ever? DSU set a program record with 7 first-half goals and never looked back on the way to an 8-2 victory. We've got the highlights, so let's roll it back. Let's take a look at the tape. It all started in the 6th minute, and Jamie Arado was tripped up from behind in the penalty box, and referee pointed to the spot, and Arado slots home the penalty kick to make it 1-0 just less than 6 minutes into the match. And about 21 minutes later, Brooklyn Vogelsberg said, "I want to score as well." So she takes the ball in, finds the back of the net to make it 2-0 in the 27th minute. And we are far from over here in the second half. Still 5 more goals to go, and the next one would be less than 2 minutes later. Darian Murdoch in the 29th minute finds the back of the net to make it 3-0. You see, just slots it past the keeper into the right corner. Again, that makes it 3-0 at that point. Then Tori Page, she says, "I went in on this goal-scoring frenzy." Page takes a pass from Tana Singley in the 33rd minute, skips past the keeper, and knocks it into the goal to make it 4-0. About 3 minutes later, again, these goals just kept coming and coming. On a corner kick, Bailey Kroll, you see the header there, and then Kroll's able to tap it into the back of the net. That would make it 5-0. Then Tana Singley, boy, did she have a game. Tana Singley with 4 assists and a goal in this game. This was her 1 goal in the 37th minute. The goals just keep coming as she knocks it in from 10 yards out to make it 6-0. And the first half scoring would be capped in the 41st minute as Taylor Claiborne takes a cross from center and then finishing it past the keeper to make it 7-0 at the half. In the second half, Westminster would make a goal to make it 7-1, and then Tori Page would find her second goal of the game to make it 8-1 at the time. The Griffins would add another goal late to make it the final score of 8-2. And certainly an incredible performance, and I should note, Singley tied the women's soccer single match assist record in the game, so it was records all around for the Trailblazers. Of course, the accolades didn't stop there for Singley as she was named the Pac West Player of the Week on Monday. To the football field now as the Trailblazers return home after a 2-game road swing for the 2017 home opener on Saturday versus Black Hills State. Indeed, everyone was excited and ready for the home opener with a crowd of over 4,000 in attendance. But the first 8 minutes did not go quite as planned, as 2 big Dixie State miscues led to a 10-0 Black Hills State lead less than 8 minutes into the game. But don't fret, the Trailblazers did not back down. They stormed back to take a 38-16 win, scoring 38 unanswered points, and we've got the highlights. We'll show you those now so you can see just exactly how that comeback came to fruition. It was 10-0, still midway through the first. Blake Barney getting into the action, his first big run of the game, 37 yards. And that would set up Seijay Luongo 2 plays later. The sophomore fined in the end zone for the second time this season, makes two men miss on the way to the end zone. That would make it 10-7, and then Dixie State can kind of breathe a sigh of relief, say, hey, we're back in this thing. Still trailing 10-7. Dixie State has the ball again. Malik Watson finds Orlando Wallace across the middle, 20-yard touchdown pass, and Dixie State would take its first lead of the game at 14-10. A little bit later in the second quarter, Blake Barney fine in the end zone for the first time since 2015. That would make it 21-10 Dixie State in the second quarter, and still 1 more touchdown to come in the second quarter. No, this isn't a replay. Malik Watson hooking up across the middle again with Orlando Wallace, this time from 40 yards out, and it's 28-10. That would be your halftime score. In the third quarter, Anthony Reyes doink off the left upright, but it sneaks in still. That makes it 31-10. And then Blake Barney finding the end zone again in the fourth quarter from 2 yards out. That makes it 38-10. Black Hills State would add a touchdown late to make it 38-16. And that was your final. Blake Barney would finish with 116 yards rushing, and that really was the offensive explosion that we've been waiting for. Should note, sophomore safety Mike Jones was named RMAC Defensive Player of the Week on Monday after notching 8 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 1 sack, and a pass breakup in that game. Trailblazers will host number 20 Central Washington in their lone non-conference game of the season on Saturday at 6 p.m. To cross country now, as the cross country teams headed up north Interstate 15 on Saturday for the BYU Autumn Classic in Provo, Utah. Both teams finished in 4th place with 3 Division I teams ahead of them on both the men's and the women's side. You can follow along with our on-screen graphics here. Junior Hunter Chamberlain was the lead man for the Dixie State men's team as he recorded a time of 21:13.8, securing a 59th place finish in the 4-mile run. Sophomore Benjamin Fish came in just after Chamberlain in 62nd place with a time of 21:23.0. Sophomore Miguel Ramirez was also finished inside the top 70 with a time of 21:46.8, good enough for 68th place. On to the women's side now. Senior Skylar Story led the way for the women's team as she finished a 3-mile run in 18:44.4, which landed her at 41st place finish. 2 other Trailblazers finishing inside the top 50 for the women's team, including freshman Lainey Wells, who crossed the tape with a time of 19:01.2. Also, sophomore Alyssa Herring finished her run with a time of 19:04.3. Wells and Herring finished in succession at 47th and 48th place. The men's and women's teams have a quick turnaround as they will participate in the UNLV Invitation on Saturday, September 23rd, beginning at 8:15 a.m. To the volleyball court now. After playing its first 8 matches on the road, the volleyball team returned to St. George and the DSU Student Activity Center on Saturday for its first home match of the season, playing host to undefeated and nationally ranked number 12, California Baptist. The Trailblazers fought tough and stayed close for most of the match, but eventually fell in straight sets at 25-21 in the first set, 25-16 in the second set, and 25-22 in the third set. Dixie State now heads to Hawaii for matches versus Hawaii Pacific on Friday and Chaminade on Saturday. It's almost time for our first break, but first a quick women's golf update for you. The Trailblazers opened their fall schedule at the Fort Lewis College hosted Skyhawk West Regional Preview, played at the Par 71 Hillcrest Golf Club on Monday. It was yesterday. Now, after that opening round, the Trailblazers sat in 14th place with a final round currently in progress as we speak. Look for the full results there at DixieStateAthletics.com. It's time for our first break. DSU strength and conditioning coach Craig Timmons will join us next as we begin a series of interviews and features looking behind the scenes at the coaches and trainers who work tirelessly to keep our student athletes healthy and going. We're back right after this timeout.
I take the road less traveled, run free, unwind, unravel someplace outside with lots to do. Green trees, red rocks, and don't forget that blue sky. The sunshine shining, sunshine pouring on me. Think I might just stay a while. Say hooray all day because the sun is gonna shine on me. Sun is gonna shine on me. Sun's gonna shine on me.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
Your daughter is having trouble learning French. Do you A, hire a tutor,
Bonjour.
B, enforce a French-only rule at home, or C, watch some foreign films? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
I take the road less traveled, run free, unwind, unravel, someplace outside with lots to do. Green trees, red rocks, and don't forget that blue sky. The sunshine shining, sunshine pouring on me. Think I might just stay a while. Say hooray all day because the sun is gonna shine on me. Sun is gonna shine on me. Sun's gonna shine on me.
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly. In the coming weeks, we look to feature those coaches and trainers who work tirelessly behind the scenes to keep our student athletes healthy and ready to go. Today we start that off and we welcome DSU strength and conditioning coach Craig Timmons to the show. Craig, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Keric.
Appreciate you making time out of your busy schedule. Obviously, you've got to watch over that weight room and all the programs that you have going to keep the student athletes ready and good to go each week. We appreciate you coming by, and we just want to get to know you better and get to know you guys that really put in a lot of time and effort to help our student athletes. First of all, let's just get to know you a little bit. Let's rewind the clock. We probably should have had you in here, a little over a year ago when we brought you in. Let's rewind the clock. You're at University of Buffalo, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. The job comes open here at Dixie State. What catches your eye about it, and what made you want to make the jump from East Coast all the way out here into the desert?
So a couple things catch my eye when I find a job like this. One, it was a young school. When I started at Buffalo, it was kind of the same deal. It was a very young program, less than 20 years old at Division I level. Same with here, less than 20 years old at Division II level. I knew the program was growing, and I wanted to be able to kind of sink my teeth in and help build a program. And then also the success the school has already showed, the baseball team, the softball team, the basketball team, just the fact that there already was a history of success. So that told me that there's a great foundation. And then I'm an outdoors guy, and the St. George area really appealed to me and my wife and now my daughter, and so that's something that we were really excited to be able to do.
Certainly plenty to do that way here in this area. Now let's go back to Buffalo. You got your bachelor's degree in exercise science in 2007 in Buffalo, and then in 2010 you were with the University of Buffalo and their strength and conditioning program. Kind of fill in the gaps for us. Where were you from that time, from graduation up until that full-time appointment at Buffalo?
Sure. When I was graduating, actually my senior year, I got hired on at a local company called Performance Sports Training, and I did predominantly, it was all athletes. I worked with the Paralympic sled hockey team for the Vancouver Olympics, and they were able to get a gold medal that year. So I had a lot of different varieties of experience, anything from kids 8 years to seniors in high school, and then we actually worked with an agent and did some combine training and all that. So from there, I got a lot of really good experience, and I decided that I wanted to be more involved with the day-to-day of the athletes' lives. And in the college industry, you're able to be involved in everything. I meet with the coaches, I meet with the athletes, I help them with the nutrition side of things. So that way, I'm able to be there, whereas privately, you get 1 or 2 sessions a week, and then you just hope they're doing everything else right.
Now, at Buffalo, you worked with football, men's basketball, wrestling, tennis, baseball, softball, soccer, basically everything that could prepare you to jump right into the programs that we offer here at Dixie State. Talk about how your time at Buffalo really helped you to prepare to come in here and to be the head guy and to take over this program.
Well, when I started at Buffalo in 2010, it was a young strength conditioning program too. They were going through a lot of overturn, a lot of staff changes, and that way I was able to get in and help the new strength coach at that time build a program up. At one point or another, I worked with almost every team on campus as we shuffled responsibilities and stuff. So that way, I was able to get a good understanding and a grasp on what each sport needed specifically, and that really helped prepare me to take over my own business. Or take over here, really. But we redid the weight room there. I ended up helping to redo the weight room here, and so just getting the experience there of doing everything and then being able to bring that experience here and build the program up has helped a lot.
You mentioned the Paralympic sled hockey team that won that gold medal. I've got a note here that didn't even allow a single goal in that time. How competitive do you get when you're working with these guys, you know, whether it's the Paralympic team, whether it's student athletes, you're in the weight room, you're helping with nutrition, and then you're on the sidelines watching them perform. How competitive do you get while you're on that sideline going, come on, we worked on this, we got to perform a little bit better here?
Yeah, I get competitive as in the athletic aspect of it. I always want to win, and that's why I'm doing this. That's why I picked this profession. And I can be an extension of that athlete now. And so being in the weight room, I get a little more one-on-one time. Really, with how NCAA rules work, I get more time with the athletes than a lot of the coaches do. And so I get to be kind of that middleman from the coaching staff to the players. I get to help portray that message. And so that when I'm on the sideline of the football games and stuff, that's all I'm doing. I'm trying to help portray coach's message and trying to get the guys performing on all levels, whether I'm helping stretch a guy or helping get a guy warmed up or whatever it is that I'm needed for. I just try to be there to help coach out.
And how satisfying is it when you're working on someone with a particular workout, you want to help them get a little bit stronger, and then you get to see them out on the field, they're a defensive lineman knocking an offensive lineman, right on their back, or vice versa. How satisfying is that for you when you see something that you've worked on specifically with a particular student athlete, and they go out and they perform and they do it?
I think it's really satisfying, but as I always portray to the athletes, it's them that have to put the work in. I can tell them this is what you need to do, but as long as they're not putting the work in, then it's no good for us, So that's something that if they put the work in, I think it should be just as satisfying for them. For me, it's more satisfying after the game when the player comes up to me and says, "Hey, coach, I felt really good out there. Thanks for everything you did." That's the satisfying aspect for me. I mean, I love watching W's for sure, but I like when the kid comes up to me after and realizes everything that's been done to help him get there.
And you mentioned the weight room. It's almost like you saw my notes here before the interview, but you mentioned the weight room and that you'd done that before in previous programs, and you got here and wanted to be able to do that. How much do those facilities play into being able what you're able to do as a strength and conditioning coach? Obviously, if you've got old, outdated equipment, you can't help the student athletes get to the point where they need to be. But where was that on the priority list when you came in, and how much does that really help you as a strength and conditioning coach be able to accomplish the goals that you set for these guys?
It was towards the top of my priority list. It was something coming in I knew was a possibility, but it wasn't set in stone, so I knew there was a lot of work to be done. But really, when it comes to training in the weight room, I'm very limited on time that I get with each athlete, so efficiency is key. So weight room design is huge, and so I really wanted to change the weight room mostly to get a lot more efficient, so I could run more teams at once, run more athletes at once. We can lift offense all at once and defense all at once now, which we weren't able to do in the past. So that's something that makes a huge difference, efficiency and hours-wise, that helps a lot with the programming. But then recruiting is another huge side of things. I mean, athletes come into that weight room now and it blows them away. Seeing the logos on the floor, seeing the logos on the racks, it's something that really helps with recruiting. Knowing that the school is committed to these facilities helps a lot, and Legend Solar Stadium obviously helps too.
Let's talk a little bit about day-to-day schedule. Help the viewers out there get to see into kind of what a day in the life of Craig Timmons is like. I'm sure it's from before dawn to after dusk. 15 teams that they're not always all in season, but even the teams that are out of season have they're able to work out and do some things. Take us through it. We're in the fall schedule, so take us through just any given fall day. How many teams are you working with on a daily basis? And when are you here? When do you get to go home finally?
So really mostly every team is working year-round. There aren't really any teams that we take off time with. It's either we're off-season preparing for the season or we're in season trying to stay healthy. So it's really something we're always working. My alarm goes off usually around 4:15. And I'm usually on campus by 5:15, 5:30. Tuesdays and Thursdays, cross country's in there at 5:45, grinding. So that's something that we get started right away. Generally, by 9 o'clock in the morning, I've had 7 to 8 teams already through the weight room. So it's something that I have 2 part-time assistants that help me a ton with the mornings, and so there are times where we'll have 3 teams going at once in the weight room, where one's finishing up, another one's just starting, and one's in the middle of the workout. And with the new setup, I'm able to roll them through with no issues at all.
How much planning and preparation does that take on a daily basis? You sit down at night and say, okay, this is who I have tomorrow. This is what we want to accomplish.
A lot of it's really planned ahead of time. So the summer is when we spend a lot of that time planning, and then December for the spring semester, as we're getting all the schedules nailed down. But a lot of the actual planning of this is what the schedule is going to be, this is who we got coming in, this is how we're going to run it, that's already done. My day-to-day planning is I've got a year plan out for the athletes already. I have a plan of this is what phase we're going to be in this time of year, this is what phase we're going to be in at this time of year. So really I just got to have their workout cards printed and have the weight room set up and ready to go. So the day-to-day planning isn't as bad. It's just really getting in there and grinding with the teams. But then it's the planning outside of that takes a lot of time. And me and my assistants, we probably spent a good 2 weeks of back and forth of this is what we want to do, how's this program, what do you think of this, and we get three eyes on every program we do, and that way we're really, if we're missing anything, we'll find it.
How do you balance your time as you bring each team in? Obviously it varies depending on how big the team is, but football team, say you bring them in, maybe they come in shifts, offense and defense.
Yep.
I'm not sure that work out because you're not going to fit 100 guys in there at one time, but there's so many guys in there, even if you split them up between offense and defense, that how do you balance your time and focusing just working with the team overall, and then how much one-on-one time do you get with each student athlete?
So I don't get a ton of one-on-one time, but I'm able to create a lot of instances within the workout where I'm coaching an athlete individually. I run on a cadence, so I usually have a whistle in my mouth and a stopwatch in my hand, and where, all right, set 1, set 2, set 3, and so I know exactly what they're on, when they're on it. It's not guys just randomly everywhere in the weight room doing whatever they want. And we have 12 racks in our weight room. I pretty much take over 4 racks. I have one assistant that takes over 4 and another assistant that takes over 4 when we have, say, 60 football players in there. And then it's 5 guys to a rack, so it's about 20 guys per coach. And so it's really not too bad at coach to athlete ratio when you think of it that way.
Well, we appreciate you stopping by today, Craig. Our time has run out on this segment, but we just really wanted to bring you in and get to know you a little bit and feature you and kind of let you tell your story. I see you and there's athletic trainers down there working with these student athletes on a day-to-day basis, and that these guys probably don't get enough credit for what they do, and it's probably how you want it. You probably want to be that guy that just helps work with them in the background, and then it's satisfying to see them accomplish their goals. But certainly those of us that are around the programs enough see that, we recognize that, and we appreciate all that you do to help the student athletes here at Dixie State University. It's incredible to see what you guys do with them.
I appreciate your time too, Keric. Thanks for having me on.
So thanks for stopping by today. It's time to run to our final timeout. When we come back, we'll look at next week's schedule. Right after this, we'll be back with more Trailblazer Weekly.
I take the road less traveled, run free, unwind, unravel someplace outside with lots to do. Green trees, red rocks, and don't forget that blue sky. The sunshine shining, sunshine pouring on me. Think I might just stay a while. Say hooray all day because the sun is gonna shine on me. Sun is gonna shine on me. Sun's gonna shine on me.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
Your daughter is having trouble learning French. Do you A, hire a tutor,
Bonjour.
B, enforce a French-only rule at home, or C, watch some foreign films? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back inside the CEC TV studios in this week's edition of Trailblazer Weekly. Before we wrap up the show today, let's take a quick look at this week's schedule. We invite you to follow along on your screen. You can see the graphics that have been prepared in advance. You can also catch all of these on the athletic calendar at DixieStateAthletics.com. Of course, women's golf in action today. Again, we mentioned that in the show. We'll get you those results on the website. But moving further ahead in the week, we've got soccer on Chaminade. That's the Pacific West Conference opener for both teams. Women's team will kick off at 4:30, 7 p.m. kick for the men's team. Into Friday, men's golf at the St. Martin's Invitational, and volleyball making their trip to the Hawaiian Islands. They are at Hawaii Pacific on Friday. That's a 7 p.m. Hawaii time start for that match. Moving into Saturday. Busy day Saturday, men's golf, men's and women's cross country is at UNLV. Soccer will be hosting Biola. First time that we'll have Biola here on our campus, as they are the new members of the Pacific West Conference. And then, of course, football at hosting Central Washington in that non-conference game. Central Washington, number 20 in the country right now and undefeated at 3-0, as they just knocked off Azusa Pacific last week. That'll be a tough matchup. You're going to want to come to Legend Solar Stadium to see that one. Then women's volleyball will wrap up the day host at Chaminade, and that will be a 3 p.m. Hawaii time start to that match. Into next week, which will wrap up our look ahead. It's men's golf at the Western Washington Viking Invitational on Monday and Tuesday, and then also on Tuesday, women's and men's soccer will host Hawaii Pacific, and we'll have all those results for you right here on Trailblazer Weekly next week. That'll do it for today's show. I want to thank you for watching and remind you that you can catch all episodes of Trailblazer Weekly on demand on the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page. Again, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on Trailblazer Weekly.